Okay, so I came up to the storage facility here. I wanted to back the motorhome out and let the generator run for a little bit. But while I was here, I want to talk about the entry step. So this is ours. You can see it's a quickie step made by Lippert. And we were having some issues with this step, and I think it's pretty common for folks to have issues. So I thought I'd just talk about a couple of things that I learned when troubleshooting our step. In our case, it was very intermittent. Sometimes the step would work fine. It'd go in and out just like you would expect. But every once in a while, and this happened a couple times when we were trying to drive it, the step stayed out. It wouldn't retract like it should. So in trying to troubleshoot all that, there's a couple things I learned about these steps, and so I thought I'd just share some of that with you. First thing, before you start spending money and buying parts for these steps, a couple things to check first. One is the lubrication, and you will see if you look at troubleshooting guides on these steps, that's really one of the first things I always say is make sure it's lubed up. So there are some points here, obvious pivot points here on the outside of the step that you can get to real easily, and they say not to use WD-40 on this to get a good penetrating oil for that. If the step is not acting the way you want, if it's not going in or out, it could be this lubrication issue, because these steps are exposed to the outside. They're exposed to road grime and dirt and rust, and so keeping them lubricated is important. Okay, so when we get underneath, you see this square rod that runs along here. So you want to lubricate this guy as well, just to make sure all these points are lubricated, including up here. Those all need to be lubricated to keep this thing running smoothly. And then obviously these points here as well. You want those to be lubricated. Now if you're still having issues at that point, then there might be some other issue. In my case, I thought it might be the motor. This is the motor. This is actually pretty easy to replace. It's 3 screws, 1, 2, and 3, and then a little wiring harness here that plugs into the side of it. I replaced the motor. Motors are fairly inexpensive. I think it was about, I found one on Amazon for about 30 bucks. It's pretty easy to replace. I thought that was going to be the fix. But I've since learned that it wasn't just the motor. When I still had issues after replacing the motor, I thought I would replace this. That's the control module. Getting ready to replace the control module, and I was unplugging wires. And I went to unplug this wire. This is the main wiring harness that comes down to this step, and I noticed that this wasn't all the way plugged in. This clip wasn't fully clipped. I pushed this together, made sure it got clipped, and I have not had a single issue with my step since. There's also a ground. You see the green wire there, and another ground that runs up that way. Make sure those have good connections as well. The contact point for the grounds can get rusted or dirty, and they can lose their connection. This was the big issue, I think, for my step. Once I got that plugged in, I've not had any more issues. So just trying to save you some hassle of buying or replacing parts. 2 things to really check before you start thinking about replacing parts. 1, make sure it's lubricated. 2, make sure all your wires have good connection. Make sure that wiring plug is, that clip is, the plug, that harness is plugged in and clipped really tight. Also make sure your ground wires have good connection, are cleaned up, and have good connection for your ground. Once I've took care of the wiring, getting that plugged in, the steps work perfectly ever since. Now, I did replace the motor, and maybe I didn't need to replace the motor because I think my issue was that wire, but I'm glad I did replace the motor because it is running a lot quieter and smoother with the new motor installed. With the old motor, it made a lot of noise, kind of a grinding sound. It wasn't terrible, but I can definitely tell a difference with the new motor in there. So that's it. Just wanted to show you a couple things that I learned on my step, give you some tips. Lubricate, good wiring connections. If that doesn't take care of it, then maybe you start replacing things like the motor or the control module, but hopefully just taking care of those things will get it going for you again. So take care. We'll see you soon.